Longtime lurker, first-time poster. So I, female, 26, feel like I'm going crazy, and my boyfriend's entire family thinks I'm being weird and rude for no reason. My boyfriend Jake, male, 28, has this really close family, and his sister Amy, female, 30, is married to this guy Mark, male, 32, who everyone absolutely loves. Like seriously, Mark is the golden boy who remembers everyone's birthdays, brings thoughtful gifts, helps with home repairs, the whole thing. But I get this super uncomfortable feeling around him, and I can't even explain why, which makes me sound totally paranoid. Am I the idiot for refusing to be alone with him, even though it's causing family problems? I've been with Jake for about a year and a half, and I really love him, but this Mark situation is becoming a real problem. At first I thought maybe I was just jealous. Like he's successful, he's charming, he seems to have his life together, and Amy is always going on about how lucky she is. But it's not jealousy, it's more like, you know when you meet someone and something just feels off, but you can't put your finger on it. I had this college roommate sophomore year who seemed amazing at first, super helpful, always offering to do things for people, remembered everyone's favorites, the works. But then slowly, I realized she was using all that information to manipulate situations and make people dependent on her. Like she'd offer to pick up your favorite coffee and then hold it over your head when she wanted something. Or she'd remember you were stressed about a test and then use that to guilt you into covering for her when she wanted to skip class. It took me months to figure out what was happening because she was so good at the helpful act. I'm not saying Mark is doing anything like that, obviously, but I get the same feeling around him, like he's performing being nice. But everyone else thinks he's genuinely wonderful, so I started thinking maybe I'm just damaged from the roommate thing and seeing problems that aren't there. Anyway, 3 things happened recently that have made this whole situation blow up, and now Jake is frustrated with me, and Amy is starting to notice something's off. First was like 2 weeks ago. Jake needed to run some errands and Amy was at work, but Mark was working from home. Jake just casually suggested I could hang out with Mark while he did his stuff since we were already at their place. I immediately felt this wave of panic and just blurted out that I just remembered my car inspection expires and I needed to get home to research where to get it done. Jake pointed out it was Sunday and inspection places aren't even open, and I got all flustered and said I wanted to look up places for tomorrow or whatever. I grabbed my purse and basically ran out while Mark just sat there watching with this little smile. Jake was confused but didn't say anything at the time, but I could tell he thought my reaction was weird. Then last week we had this family dinner planned at this Italian place everyone likes. Amy texted last minute that work was keeping her late. Jake suggested I ride with Mark since we live closer to the restaurant and could grab better parking. I immediately said I'd drive myself because I might want to stop somewhere after dinner. Jake was like, "Since when do we make stops after family dinner?" and pointed out gas is expensive, which, fair, it is. I got defensive and snapped that I just wanted my own car, and Mark smoothly jumped in, saying he actually prefers driving alone anyway because he might leave early for some work call. At the time, I was grateful he backed me up, but thinking about it later, he knew exactly what to say to make the situation work out while making me look reasonable. The whole dinner was awkward because I barely talked to Mark and kept finding excuses not to sit near him. Amy definitely noticed, but she's one of those people who avoids bringing up anything that might cause conflict. Then this past weekend, we had another family thing at Jake's parents' house. It was the 3rd gathering where I was obviously avoiding Mark, and Jake finally asked me straight up what my problem is. I tried to explain that I just feel weird around Mark, but I couldn't give any actual reasons without sounding completely paranoid or bitchy. Like, what was I gonna say? He smiles too much, or he's too helpful. That makes me sound insane. Jake got frustrated because Mark has been nothing but nice to everyone and helpful to his family. He said I was being unfair and it was affecting everyone's mood at family events. I asked him to just trust my gut on this one, and he said okay, but I could tell he wasn't happy about it. The thing is, I can't even point to anything specific Mark has done wrong. He's never been inappropriate or said anything weird to me. He's just, I don't know, too smooth, too good at saying exactly the right thing. And that smile when I freaked out about staying alone with him was just, ugh. But now Amy is asking Jake if everything's okay because she can tell something's off with how everyone's acting. Jake's parents probably noticed too, but they're being polite about it. And I feel like I'm being crazy and paranoid, but also like I should trust my instincts. I mean, I learned with the roommate situation that sometimes your gut picks up on stuff before your brain does. Jake keeps saying his family is important to him, which I totally get and respect, and that Mark makes Amy happy, so I need to figure out how to be comfortable around him. But I just can't. And I can't explain why without sounding like I'm making stuff up or being too much. I know this probably sounds ridiculous, but I swear I'm not usually like this. I get along with everyone else in Jake's family just fine. It's literally just Mark that gives me this feeling. So am I the idiot for continuing to avoid being alone with Mark, even though it's causing problems, and I can't give Jake a good reason for why I feel uncomfortable? Information to add. Since people are asking, no, Mark has never done anything overtly inappropriate or made any kind of move on me. I want to be really clear about that because I don't want to imply something that didn't happen. It's more like, you know how some people just have this energy that feels off? And I realize that sounds super vague and unhelpful, but it's the best way I can describe it. Like when you meet someone and they're saying all the right things, but something in your gut is screaming no. That's what this feels like. To address the comments saying I'm probably just jealous or creating issues, I really don't think that's it. I genuinely want Jake's family to like me, and I hate that this is causing problems. If I could just flip a switch and be comfortable around Mark, I absolutely would. Trust me, this would be so much easier if I could just get over whatever this is. But I also learned from past experiences that ignoring red flags, even ones I can't fully articulate, usually doesn't end well. I'm trying to figure out if this is a legitimate gut instinct or if I'm just being paranoid because of past stuff. Now for the first update. You were right about trusting my gut. It's so much worse than I thought, and I feel sick about everything. So remember how I posted about feeling weird around my boyfriend's brother-in-law, Mark, but couldn't explain why? Well, turns out my instincts were spot on, and now I know why something felt off. This whole thing has blown up in ways I never saw coming, and honestly, I don't even know where to start. I, female, 26, had my quarterly review with my boss yesterday, and she mentioned something that really worried me. She said someone from a marketing firm had been reaching out through mutual professional contacts asking about my work performance and recent projects. Like, what the actual hell? My boss, let's call her Janet, was pretty confused about it too. She said this guy claimed he was considering me for some senior consulting role and wanted to check references, but I've never applied anywhere or given anyone permission to make inquiries about me. That's not how professional networking works, you know? You don't just investigate people without their knowledge. But here's the part that really freaked me out. Janet mentioned that this person knew specific details about a client presentation I gave 3 weeks ago that didn't go great. Like he knew I'd had trouble with the visual formatting and that the client pushed back on our timeline recommendations. Those are really specific internal details that I only talked about with my boyfriend Jake. I got this awful feeling because I realized what was happening. The only person I'd vented to about that presentation was Jake, and I'd been pretty detailed about what went wrong because I was stressed and needed to talk through it. Janet asked if I was job hunting and said if I was, I should have disclosed any potential conflicts of interest. I had to explain that I had no idea anyone was making inquiries about me and that I definitely didn't authorize it. She was cool about it, but mentioned she'd be monitoring the situation since it felt irregular. I left work early and went straight to Jake's apartment. I was trying to stay calm, but honestly, I was pretty much shaking with anger by the time I got there. I asked him point blank if he'd been sharing details about my work with his family. At first, he acted all confused, like he didn't know what I was talking about. But when I mentioned the marketing firm inquiries, he looked really uncomfortable. Turns out, my boyfriend has been sharing my work stress during family dinners because his brother-in-law, Mark, mentioned he has connections in consulting and could potentially help my career. Jake admitted that Mark had offered to make some calls and put in a good word with his professional network. I was like, what the fuck, Jake? Sorry for the language, but I was so mad. Those were private conversations. I was venting to my boyfriend, not asking for family intervention in my career. Jake got all defensive, and said he was just trying to be supportive and help me through a tough time at work. He said his family believes in helping each other out and that Mark has helped other people get jobs before. But I pointed out that you don't help people by secretly investigating them through professional contacts without their knowledge or consent. That's when things got really weird, though. I was so upset that I decided to call Mark directly and tell him to stop making any professional inquiries about me. I know that sounds crazy given how I've been avoiding him, but I was so angry about the work situation that my rage overrode my usual anxiety around him. I figured better to handle it head on than let this drag out and get messier. Mark answered on the second ring and acted all surprised when I brought it up. He said he was just trying to help family by using his network and that he thought I'd appreciate the gesture. I told him firmly that I needed him to stop making any inquiries about my work and that I hadn't asked for help with my career. But then he said something that really upset me. He mentioned that he understood why I was stressed since the Johnson account has been so difficult and that he'd heard I'd been working late trying to fix things with them. I couldn't believe what I was hearing because I never told Jake about losing the Johnson account. That happened last week, and I decided not to mention it because Jake's been stressed about his own work stuff and I didn't want to pile on. The only people who know about the Johnson situation are my direct team and Janet. I asked Mark how he knew about Johnson, and he got all vague and said something about hearing through the grapevine that I'd been dealing with some challenging clients lately. But there's no grapevine that would connect Mark's marketing firm to my consulting company's internal client issues. After I hung up, I felt physically sick. This guy has been researching my work situation way beyond what any normal person would do, even if they were trying to help. And he somehow has information about stuff I never shared with Jake, which means either he has sources at my company or he's been investigating me way more thoroughly than anyone should be doing. I called Jake immediately and told him about the Johnson thing. He swore he never mentioned Johnson to anyone because I'd never told him about it. We went through all my recent work conversations and confirmed that I definitely hadn't shared those details with him. So now I'm sitting here trying to figure out how Mark knew about a client issue that I never discussed with Jake and that isn't public information. The only explanations I can think of are all really bad. Jake is freaked out too now because he realizes this goes way beyond normal family helpfulness. He said he'll talk to Mark about boundaries, but honestly, I don't think a conversation is going to fix this. This feels like a massive violation of my privacy and professional boundaries. I keep thinking about all those times Mark offered to help with various things and how he always seemed to know just a little too much about everyone's situations. Like maybe my weird gut feeling was picking up on the fact that he gathers information about people in ways that aren't normal or appropriate. I don't know what to do about my job situation either. Do I tell Janet that my boyfriend's brother-in-law has been making unauthorized inquiries about me? Do I try to figure out how he got the Johnson information? The whole thing feels so messy and inappropriate. And honestly, I'm kind of mad at Jake too. I get that he was trying to help, but sharing my private work conversations without asking feels like a betrayal of trust. Those were boyfriend-girlfriend venting sessions, not please get your family involved in my career discussions. I feel like I'm going crazy, but also like my paranoia was totally justified. This is exactly the kind of thing my gut was warning me about, even though I couldn't articulate it before. Am I the idiot for being furious about this whole situation? And what do I even do now? Information to add. Since people are asking, no, I haven't contacted HR or anything formal yet because I'm trying to figure out exactly what happened before I escalate it. My boss, Janet, is aware that someone was making inquiries, but she doesn't know it's connected to my personal life. I'm honestly not sure if this rises to the level of involving HR, since technically no one at my company did anything wrong, but the unauthorized reference checking definitely crosses professional lines. To address comments about Jake's role in this, yeah, I'm pretty upset with him too. I get that his family is close and they try to help each other out, but sharing someone's private work struggles without permission isn't okay just because your intentions are good. I'm trying to figure out if this is a communication issue we can work through or if it shows a fundamental difference in how we handle boundaries and privacy. The fact that he didn't think to ask before involving Mark in my career stuff really bothers me. For those wondering How Mark could have gotten the Johnson account information? I honestly have no idea, and it's keeping me up at night. The possibilities I can think of are either he knows someone at my company, which would be a crazy coincidence, he's connected to someone at Johnson's company, or he's been researching me way more extensively than anyone should. None of those options make me feel good about this situation. I'm planning to be way more careful about what information I share going forward, even with Jake. Now for the second update. You all called it. I should have trusted my gut from the beginning, and I can't believe how much worse this has gotten. I'm honestly still processing what happened, and everything feels completely crazy right now. So remember how Mark had been making those weird professional inquiries about me and somehow knew about the Johnson account thing I never told my BF about. Well, it turns out that was just the beginning, and now I know exactly why I felt so uncomfortable around him all this time. I need to back up a bit because there's something I never mentioned in my previous posts. Like, I know I should have said this from the beginning, but honestly, I was hoping it would never come up and I could just avoid the whole situation forever, you know. Mark and I have history, college history. I know. I should have mentioned this before, but hear me out, okay? We hooked up a few times during my senior year when I was at State. It wasn't serious or anything, at least not for me, and it only lasted like 2 months before he graduated. I was super clear that I wasn't looking for anything long-term because I was focused on job hunting and figuring out my life after graduation. He seemed fine with it at the time, but apparently wasn't. The thing is, when Jake first introduced me to his family, I immediately recognized Mark, but I was praying he wouldn't say anything, and he didn't. He just acted like we'd never met before, and I went along with it because what else was I supposed to do? Create a mess at our first family dinner by telling everyone about my history with Mark. I figured it was ancient history, and we could both just pretend it never happened. Looking back now, I think something felt off, but at the time, I honestly didn't connect my weird feelings around Mark with our college thing. It had been so brief that I'd kind of forgotten about it, but now I think my gut knew something was wrong. Anyway, this all came out in the worst possible way yesterday. Apparently Amy, my BF's sister, was putting together this surprise anniversary slideshow for Jake's parents, and she was looking through Mark's old social media photos to find good pictures from early in their relationship. She was going back through his timeline to see when they first got together, and that's when she found these pictures from a Halloween party at State from like 5 years ago. And there we were, me and Mark, in couples costumes, looking very much like we were together. I guess there were multiple photos from that party, and we looked pretty intimate in all of them. Like obviously not just friends, you know. And the timestamp showed it was 6 months before Amy met Mark, so she put 2 and 2 together pretty fast. She screenshotted everything and started calling people. By the time Jake got home from work yesterday, his phone was blowing up with calls from his sister, his mom, and apparently some family friends who Amy had called to tell them I was trying to steal her husband back. My BF was, well, he was pissed. Like really angry in a way I've never seen before. He came over to my place and immediately started yelling about how I'd been lying to his entire family for over a year and making Mark look like a creep when I was apparently the one with bad intentions. I tried to explain that this is exactly why I've been avoiding Mark, because of our history, not because I wanted to rekindle anything. But Jake was so angry, he wasn't really listening at first. He kept saying I should have told him about Mark from the beginning, and that keeping it secret made everything look suspicious, which, okay, fair point, I guess. But like, when exactly was I supposed to bring that up? How do you casually mention you used to hook up with someone's brother-in-law? That seemed like it would create more problems than just letting it stay in the past. But then I showed him my phone, because here's the thing. Mark started texting me right after that phone call I made about the work stuff. Like within a few days, he went from the professional inquiries to sending personal messages. It's like confronting him about the work boundaries made him drop the pretense and get more direct about what he really wanted. The messages started out seeming normal, but got progressively more personal and inappropriate over the past couple weeks. Like they started out seeming normal, just, hey, how are you type stuff. But then they got into reminiscing about college and how much he missed our connection and how he'd love to catch up privately about both personal and professional stuff. The most recent ones were getting really specific about how beautiful and ambitious I still am and how he thinks about our college days sometime, and mixing in the professional networking stuff with these personal comments in a way that felt really manipulative. I'd been deleting them as they came in because I didn't want to deal with it, but I still had a bunch in my trash folder from the past couple weeks. When I showed Jake the messages, his whole expression changed. Like he could see immediately that these weren't the texts of someone who was just being friendly or helpful with career stuff. These were the texts of someone who was still hung up on an ex and trying to find excuses to reconnect. And that's when Amy showed up. She was furious, like absolutely ready to have it out with me about trying to ruin her marriage and going after her husband. She started yelling at me about manipulating the family and playing victim while secretly pursuing Mark. I just handed her my phone. I showed her the messages, all of them, including the ones where Mark was talking about missing our special connection and wanting to meet up privately. The ones where he mixed career advice with comments about how I look and how much he thinks about the past. Amy got really quiet really fast. She knows Mark's writing style, obviously, and she could see that these messages were all initiated by him, that I never responded to any of them, that he was the one bringing up our college relationship and trying to create opportunities to see me alone. She sat down on my couch and just stopped talking for like 10 minutes. Finally, she asked why I never told anyone about the texts, and I explained why I couldn't say what made me uncomfortable around Mark. How do you tell your boyfriend's family that his brother-in-law is texting you about your college hookup without seeming like you're trying to cause trouble, especially when everyone thinks he's perfect? Jake was reading through the messages too and getting more and more upset. Not at me anymore, but at the whole situation. He said the professional networking stuff made more sense now. Mark wasn't just trying to help, he was trying to stay connected to me and get information about my life. Amy was still really quiet, but she asked to see the messages again. She was looking at the timestamps and realizing that some of Mark's most romantic texts to me were sent on days when she was working late or out of town, like he was using her absence as opportunities to reach out to his ex. I told her this is exactly why I'd been avoiding being alone with him and why I couldn't explain my discomfort without seeming paranoid. Because how do you say your husband gives me bad vibes when everyone loves him and you can't point to anything specific? But also, and this is the part that's really messing with my head, I think Mark has been using his helpful persona to gather information about people and then leverage it. Like the work stuff wasn't just about helping my career, it was about staying involved in my life and having reasons to contact me. Amy finally said she needed to go home and talk to Mark, but before she left, she apologized for calling everyone and spreading rumors before she knew the whole story. She said she'd been feeling like something was off with Mark lately, but couldn't put her finger on it, and finding those photos made her panic and assume the worst about me, instead of questioning why her husband never mentioned knowing me. But honestly, I don't think an apology fixes this. My BF's entire family now thinks I'm either a liar or a homewrecker or both. Even if Amy sets the record straight, people are going to remember the mess and think there's probably some truth to it, you know? And I'm really struggling with Jake right now too, because I get that I should have told him about Mark from the beginning, but also, he shared my private work conversations with his family without asking, and now it turns out his brother-in-law was using that information to try to manipulate me into spending time with him. Like, I'm trying to figure out if the work boundary violation was just Jake being naive about his family dynamics, or if there's a bigger pattern here of him not protecting my privacy when it comes to his family. Because this whole thing could have been avoided if he hadn't been sharing details about my life with Mark in the first place. I don't know what happens next. Amy said she's going to confront Mark tonight, but honestly, I don't see how this ends well for anyone. Their marriage is probably going to fall apart. Jake's family is going to be forever weird around me, and I still have to figure out how to handle the professional boundaries thing with my boss. Plus, I keep thinking about all those times Mark offered to help with various things around the house or with other family members. Was he gathering information about everyone? Was I the only one getting inappropriate texts, or were there others? The whole thing just feels so gross and manipulative, and I can't believe I spent over a year thinking I was being paranoid when my gut was actually trying to protect me from this mess. I also keep thinking about what my mom always said about trust, that once it's broken, you can't really put it back together the same way. And I feel like trust has been broken in so many directions here that I don't know how to fix any of it. Edit 1. For those asking if I've talked to my boss about this yet, no, I'm trying to figure out exactly what to say first, since this is such a personal mess, but I probably need to give her a heads up before Mark tries any more professional contact. 2. To answer everyone asking why I didn't just tell Jake about Mark from the beginning, honestly, I was embarrassed about the hookup situation and hoped it would never matter, which I realize now was stupid. 3. Since people are wondering what Amy found when she talked to Mark, I haven't heard from her yet, but Jake said his parents got a very long phone call from her last night, so I'm guessing it didn't go well.